Hey everyone, it's Will, GamerDad, with another video for you. So first off, I'd like to apologize for my crashing on my live stream earlier. I do apologize for that. But that being said, in tonight's episode of Should You Summon, we will cover the different banners that cover the Silver Striker. Now, if you haven't already, make sure you like and subscribe to my channel. I really appreciate it. I also do have a Patreon account for those who want to support me this way. So first off, we obviously do have the Fateful. There is 2 chances at it, and it does cost 1,000 paid stones or your Heaven's ticket if needed. Like most standard Fatefuls, 10% flat chance on the 10th pull. Pulls 1 to 9 have the 0.8%, and of course, you also have a chance from pulls 1 to 9 of getting all the other 5 stars currently available in the game, including our most recent Water Mage, Flamelapis. Okay, so pretty standard stuff. Everything else is here. Eva, Melissa, you can name them. All the altars, for example, all 4 here, not including this one. And of course, unfortunately, bots, Rainbow Sisters, and Knights. Okay, then we will go into each of the free banners. So as you can see in the update notice yesterday, this banner does include the 4 units aforementioned, Silver Striker, finally AS Leclerc, Yukino, and Seti, each at 1% for a total of 4%. So this is a slightly uprated banner in compared to the standard 5-star rate, which is 3.6% on the 10th pull. And finally, the water version of Silver Striker. Same thing, 4 units, 1% flat chance times 4. Annabelle AS, Shani AS, and Shigure, sorry. Note that Shigure is a normal style and not the AS version. So, should you summon? So first off, obviously, it really depends on your views and what you need on your team. And I would like to say that not because I want to waffle on what I think about the unit, but let's be honest. With some power creep that's been happening lately, you've seen all the altar units being extremely powerful. For example, upcoming banners in Japan are also extremely powerful. Even the ES units, as they were being released in the Mythos, you had ES Mystara, ES Iska, and so on and so forth. Flamelapis, obviously our 2nd and 3rd year global units, Melissa and Eva. So that being said, she is our newest Pierce Zone setter. Now, one thing really unique about her that I didn't realize is her zone ability is turn and buff in any stance. So like most zone setters, they only affect within their own stance. So for example, with 4 in AS as a Pierce Zone setter, at the end of her turn, if it's number of only in, I believe, in Pierce Zone, you get that boost 15% times 4, depending on the number of Pierce attacks that done that turn. But in the case of Silver Striker, you can use that in any zone. So this makes things very, very interesting. Now, she can either be subbed in, for example, in a water zone, where you can still support lance and bow type Pierce units. And let's be honest, in terms of water DPS, your 2 most powerful, in my opinion, of course, is obviously water magic DPS, as well as water Pierce teams, which you've probably seen me use in the past. It's not that you can't use mixed water teams or all/water teams. It's just that I do find the synergy between those seem to be best, especially given Magic recently has Flamelapis and Eva on the same team. Now, that being said, in terms of her moves, sorry, something in my throat. Silver Striker not only has the zone setting, obviously passive skill, she also has some cluster stacking where, depending on the number of hits on an enemy, and I assume that also means it's just per hit. So that means if your move has 4 hits, like a quad hit times 4, then you get 4 clusters. Now, in the terms of AoE, I'm not sure if you hit 3 enemies and they each get AoE times 2, whether or not that's 6 clusters or not. That being said, depending on the number of clusters, at the end of turn, it consumes an all and applies an int and power debuff on the enemy for the next turn. So regardless, you're getting a little bit of defense that way. She also has a Lunatic Charge, which basically means for every hit that she does, she'll add an extra Thunder type attack, which means you're going to get more hits, causing more things like AF bar gain, for example. You also have the cluster mechanic and so on and so forth. So that's really good. Now, in terms of her main strength, obviously she is an altered unit, so she has the ability to activate another zone. And again, if you're newer to the game, another zone is basically locking in a weapon or elemental zone for 2 turns, doubling the effect in terms of offensive ability. So for elemental zones is ×2, which is 50% to 100% extra damage. And for attack weapon zones, it would be 60% instead of 30%. Very, very good. And it also locks it in so other enemies or bosses can't change zones on you, which is very, very useful against Battle Simulator, aka Boss Rush. Now, the downside, it only lasts 2 turns. And one thing about Silver Striker, most of her damage and abilities, just like other alter units, is best in another zone. So, for example, she has certain damage. Her main water DPS is a water pierce single enemy XL ×4. When in another zone, increases the modifier by double damage. So you really need another zone active to get the best out of the water DPS in this case. Now keep in mind that even normally her water DPS is not bad. It's certainly not the top in the game, but that's not even her most powerful move. Her most powerful move is the Thunder type attack once you unlock her Lunatic, which she can activate, and then in another zone. She can do an insane amount of damage with her Thunder Pierce attack, which is all single target, by the way. So you do lose some AoE ability, unfortunately, on her, and she's basically mostly used in this case, obviously, for single target DPS. She has to have Lunatic activate and, and during the another zone plus another force. So you have to do this move massively in the AF to do tons and tons and tons of damage. So I would say that obviously if you need extra DPS in AF, she's going to be the one for you. And keep in mind that obviously for Pierce units, she's going to have multi-hits, which is going to be nice for that. And she still supports all your units, like I said, based on the number of Pierce attacks in your done that turn. Now, one other thing to note is that in upcoming content for Japan, we've already seen Thunder Zone units. That is a unit that can set Thunder Zone, which is now a new elemental zone in a way. Based on that, you can start mixing and matching Thunder type units. And if you remember, most Thunder type units increase AF combo rate by a lot during the AF, and you can start having a lot of interesting mechanics, especially with the likes of our more famous Thunder unit, AS Victor, who has nice end of turn shenanigans with that end of turn wind attack that can hit a 7,000 mod if you get enough combo meter. He will help Silver Striker get high combo meter, so both of them will do even more damage. And keep in mind that AS Victor stacks True Nose or certain stacks on himself, depending on the number of hits he did or on the one enemy, in which case the next turn he'll still have an ability to end the fight if the end of turn attack from him hasn't ended the fight. So I know this is about Silver Striker, but you have to consider when we're summoning and pulling for the most recent units, how they are relevant in today's meta and also for the future too, because we can still see into the future, and I did talk about that in another video, where as long as Global is behind Japan, we can actually still plan our summons and decide where best to use our stones. So depending on if you want to plan ahead and really build one of the more ultimate Thunder type units and teams, Silver Striker is a great add in terms just from the raw DPS. And let's be honest, if Thunder Zone is going to be active in the future, you know that they're going to be bosses that you can use that Thunder Zone to exploit a weakness or just exploit a vulnerability. And so if you want to plan ahead, this is definitely the way to go. However, on the downside, keep in mind that because Thunder is currently not necessary in the game, and I would argue that in as high as a multiplier you can get with that, it's mostly during the AF that you can do a ton of damage. Outside AF, I would say her damage output drops dramatically. Even her water main pierce attack is, again, single target. You can probably get higher modifications with things like AS Hismina, even the other shared banners for the free one, which is obviously AS Leclerc and Yukino. Both of them can hit extremely high mods, not to mention other water pierce units. In terms of pierce zone, keep in mind that AS Foreign, even if you're in the early part of the endgame, can probably be grinded out with some treatises. AS Sheila, if you play through the 3,000 year arc, then you'll get her for free. And obviously, if you're a veteran of the game and you have multiple Pierce Zone units, you can even achieve the Pierce Zone Grasta from EX4 of the Malefiques, which is one of those boss rush stages featuring dual Hachio. So in terms of just needing a Pierce Zone unit, I would say this is a pass. If you're looking for planning ahead for ultimate Thunder type team, this is a unit that you would want to consider. Now, keep in mind that that's only talking about the paid banner in general. Now, if you're talking about the two different versions here, I'll just spend quickly speaking. I would argue that this water type one is really only good if you are still relatively new to the game and have no access to Water Zone. In the game currently, Water Zone is available through AS Yuna, AS Annabelle, AS Shiguri, as well as AS Zavirhu, aka AS Zaviro. Now, of those, I will say that AS Annabelle, although her damage multiplier is very low, she can still cast Water Zone with a move outside AF, and so that is very valuable, which I've definitely used on fights that keep on re-establishing zone. In the case of AS Shigure, pretty high DPS, and same with AS Zaviro. With their zone, they can set zone and do pretty good damage within AF and outside AF. And finally, AS Yuna, I don't think she's as relevant nowadays, although she does have some defensive capabilities and some type down and supportive healing functions. Now, so therefore, this banner does have access to AS Annabelle, which is immediately your Water Zone setter. You have Shigure, which you'll have to save up treatises and chance and side grade to AS Shigure, which still allows you to, if you're playing consistently with your keys, can get AS Shigure as a Water Zone setter within a few months, 3 to 6 months, I would say. AS Shani, not great at this point, although you can argue that a manifest for her might be coming out. The other thing, though, is that she does have end of turn attacks, which can help with mechanics with AS Shigure, as well as other interesting mechanics such as Sari Seas and so on and so forth. So I'll mention that as a small benefit. However, if you're not looking for a Water Zone type unit, I would argue that this banner doesn't give you enough water DPS to warrant summoning on. In the Pierce one, we actually have a different story. I would argue that AS Leclerc with Manifest is still among the top Pierce DPS for water in the game. I mean, I would say raw damage wise, probably not nearly as powerful as Himina, for example, but she's got pain setting, she's got power down, she's got int down, some defensive capabilities that way. Yukino, she's got that cheese strat with her snowman. She is a lot older unit wise, she's over a year and a half old, but let's be honest, her snowman mechanic can definitely cheese a fight, and again, she still has potential for further manifest or AS feature in the future. Seti, sorry, I've used Seti since the beginning. He's just useless and outdated at this point. I'd like to say that with his int down, pierce attack is not bad, but let's be honest, 35% int down, you can probably get that dual debuff already with AS Tsubame and better units. Even his AS form currently is not used in any sort of meta, and I wouldn't recommend getting Seti at all. This one is great for adding water pierce units to your team, especially for those who are relatively new to the game and don't have a complete water zone type team. Keep in mind that as you progress through the game and you need lots of different type of team combinations to fight the toughest content in the game, especially optional super boss content, eventually, optimally, you'll have a very powerful one team of each weapon type, that is one pierce team, one blunt team, one magic team, and one slash team. And you'll eventually be able to combine those and also have an elemental team, one water, one fire, one earth, and one wind. And if you have a more complete roster, you not only can just make a raw elemental team, you can now mix weapon synergies with the element to make the ultimate team against enemies who are weak to that element. For example, you can have Fire Slash, you can have Wind Pierce. Examples of that was, for example, for Wind Pierce would be Iosakia, Manifestus Zet, Garum Barrel for tanking, and so on and so forth. So you can now, and if you have people on the same team that are elemental and weapon type, you can now start sharing Grastus, because as you progress to the very end game, the main super teams you can get are DPS need to be able to receive lots of buffs, and that enhances your top line DPS. And remember, buffs can come from moves, but realistically speaking, they also can come from shared Graston. So personality types matter. In the case of Water Pierce being some of the most powerful water type units in the game, you have things like IDA, for example, or Lance even. So Water Lance is a thing. You have lots of Water Lance units to choose from. Even the lesser used Uella is a Water Lance and can either carry Grasta or use Grasta if needed. So to make a long story short, this is the better of the two banners in my opinion, unless you absolutely need a Water Zone, in which case the other one's better. If you want to round out your water DPS and you don't have a Flamelopus, for example, or Eva, this is a banner to consider. Keep in mind that even if you have a magic water DPS team, there are going to be bosses that null magic, in which case you'll still have to rely on a weapon to deal damage, such as Pierce. So hopefully that gives you some insight as to whether or not you should summon for it. Again, at this point, you really have to evaluate your own roster and determine whether or not she's right for you. I wouldn't say this is automatic summon, for example. That's why I didn't really want to go that way. And so let me know in the comments below if you're planning to summon or if you're going to hold back. You can see I claimed some rewards. I have about 2,000 stones. Unless something changes, I'm probably going to hold off on pulling. I actually don't have the normal version of the Silver Striker, nor do I have Yukino. I do have Seti and I do have AS Leclerc. And on the other banner, I do have all three other units in their respective forms. So that's where we stand. Anyways, hopefully you're enjoying the newest content. Currently, I am grinding out the last kind of side event challenge for Starkey, which if you've played through it already, you'll know that there is a kind of a mini game that you have to challenge. And so I'm trying to do that all tonight. And maybe I'll put out some additional content over the next couple days as I can. Anyways, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.